Hi. Today I want to show you how to make a simple sleeve candle holder. No bottom, just slips over a candle. So this is earthenware clay, and I'm going to flatten out a big piece of clay with my rolling pin. First I like to kind of patty cake it out to get the shape started. There we go. And we roll from the middle and out and lift, roll back and lift at the edge. I always lift at the edge to be sure that I'm not mashing the edge with the rolling pin. Then I like to flip the clay over so that it's not sticking to the canvas. If you just roll back and forth repeatedly, the canvas gets completely saturated and the clay sticks and it's not going to grow then. We want it to be able to grow. Now, the thing is, with a candle holder like this, you're not going to get much light to show through if you leave your slab of clay thick. So I have to get this rolled out thinner. And it's tricky because if you go too thin, you're going to end up with a really fragile areas where it's narrow, right? Where there's tiny bits of space. If the clay is too thin, it'll crack in between these little narrow spots. So that's one thing that you have to kind of practice and work through. You'll end up making some mistakes along the way. I certainly do repeatedly. So you'll get to a point where you kind of can guess a good thickness and a good distance from, one piece to the next when you're cutting them out. And I'll talk about that as we go along here. So I've got my clay rolled out nice and thin. Yeah, about half the diameter of my pinky when I press it down on the board. So I think that's good. I don't want to go too thin because then it won't stand up. There we go. That's pretty good. Okay, so then you don't have to use a pattern. Look at this. This isn't a shape that matches up. It's just something more fun and whimsical. So, and this is what I traced to do that shape. You can just cut a rectangle and that would be fine, right? All you want to do is make sure that the bottom is completely flat and even. So I'm going to trace this with my needle tool, nice and straight, holding the tool pretty much straight up and down. Or if you're ever going to lean the tool, lean it the direction that you are moving, okay? So you would never want to go towards you, but lean it left or right, because that's going to give you a very sharp, jagged edge, and we don't want that. I'm going to show you. Look at how sharp and jagged this edge is. That's not fun because that takes a lot more time to clean up. But if you hold the tool straight up and down or only lean it in the direction you're moving, that's going to give you a much cleaner cut. I'm going to put all my scraps in my bag so they don't dry out while I'm working here. It saves me time later. It's less to recycle. So what's going to happen is eventually I'm going to stand this up and make it a complete circle, right? But first we want to figure out what our image is going to be. And just because it's easier for me to do it right side up, I'm going to turn it this way. So here's my bottom, and I am going to decide what image I should put. And just because I showed you the little nativity, I think I'm going to stick with that. So I'm kind of just eyeing it up first, softly imprinting, because if I go ahead and start cutting, then it's too late if I decide that I need to adjust the position of something. So I figure I'll do my star here, and Joseph and Mary, and the little crib where Jesus is. Okay, so very subtle, just very simple and subtle to start with, but that gives me a nice guide of where I'm starting and where I'm heading. So what I did first is I took a tiny little pipe. I got these pipes from the hardware store, and I love to use them to cut out circles. Now this is where my star is going to be, the North Star, but I'm starting with the circle and I'm laying down my needle tool to cut out the points. Okay, so I'm going to cut those slim triangles. So if I had lots of time and I don't want to, take too long to make this video, I would probably leave my clay rest for a while because it's a little on the sticky side, but that's okay. We're going to keep working through. And if you're doing this at home, go ahead and just let your clay rest until it's not quite so sticky. And that'll make it easier to work with, it easier to cut, easier to take the pieces out. Just patting it down. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting out little sections and then I poke it to lift up the part that I just cut free. And this is very uneven, so I'm going to try to even that out a little bit. Oh, that's better. Okay. I'm going to cut out another tiny triangle. I have to be careful because if I get any of my sections too close together, that could cause a crack when this is drying. So here's my roof. Here's the end of the peak of one of the rays from the star. I don't want to get any closer than that. I typically tell my students leave a finger width in between little cutout edges. So I'm a little shy of a complete finger width right now. So I think I'm going to adjust and move over a little bit. I'll feel more secure if I do that. So I'm just relining this up. And I'll slide this over too. Yeah, I feel better about that. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and cut those. I'm not connecting my little roof, my slanted roof areas. I'm just cutting them out as separate strips. So now I'm going to leave some space and cut out the other side of the roof. There we go. A little bit of space, and this will be part of the wall. I never want to get too close to the bottom either. Try to leave a finger width between your lowest part that you're cutting out and the bottom of your project. There we go. So you can use this technique with any kind of luminary. You could be cutting out dragonflies instead, but still use that idea. So I'm going to get some of this clay out of here and use it for Joseph's head. Maybe I'm going to make him a little taller. Here we go. Like that. Cut it out. And then Mary is a little lower. And I think I'm going to use something smaller for baby Jesus. This is just the end of tiny skewer or maybe even a Q-tip handle. I'm not sure, but I'm always collecting little sticks because they come in handy in the class so much. Now I'm going to cut out the little manger, the crib, I guess. There we go. Joseph is standing, so he's just going to be a tall rectangle. Simple shapes, creating these simple, sweet silhouettes. And now she's going to be kneeling, so she's going to be like an L. There we go. Poke that out. Okay, so far so good. Now I'm going to cut out some more of those circles. And again, I'm going to just be careful, do them randomly. So I didn't clean it out. Now I have clay stuck in there. So that's why I was cleaning it out. There we go. These pipes come in handy, but you do have to clean them every so often. I like that they give me a nice clean circle. Okay. And then when this has had time to dry, I would clean up these little cuts a little bit just by going in with the needle tool. When they're leather hard, when it's a point where you can touch it without leaving fingerprints, and you can just kind of smooth with the needle tool inside these holes. Another way I can get more imprints is by using this. Go. So just to be on the safe side, I want to turn it over and make sure I don't have a bunch of clay scraps inside the holes, because you're not going to get as much light through your luminary if your holes are practically plugged with clay scraps. There we go. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Okay, I left this purposely because this is where I'm going to overlap to attach it. I'm standing it on end. I'm going to bring it around so carefully and then scratch and wet these ends together. I use my wire brush and my slip. Nice and gooey, nice and rough there. I'll put my hand inside to offer some resistance while I press it together. I see some goo oozing out there. So that tells me that I've made a nice attachment. It's nice and secure. I have a dirty old paintbrush here. I just dip it in the water and then smooth some of that away. There we go. So my recommendation, if you do something like this, the best way to dry it out is slowly. Drape some plastic over it so that it doesn't dry out really quickly. Any of these areas, like where the head is over the body, those are some fragile areas that could crack, and where the roof is about to meet the roof is about to meet the wall. That's a thin and small area too. So those are more fragile. Just draping light plastic over it so that it dries slowly is going to give that time to adjust and dry more evenly, not suddenly. Drying it quickly and suddenly makes it sometimes pop apart as it shrinks too quickly. So drying it slower is going to give you a better chance of it not cracking and breaking. Thanks for watching.